Good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to attend this afternoon's webinar discussion of how you can help adult literacy programs during the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Amanda Wilson, and I'm the Annual Fund Manager at ProLiteracy, and I will be this afternoon's moderator. A few housekeeping items before we begin. If you have any technical difficulties, please type them in the discussion box, and someone from our team will assist you. During the presentation, please feel free to ask questions. You may do so in that question and answer box located on the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation. And for those of you joining us on Facebook Live, welcome, and please comment should you have any questions. We will stop during various points of the presentation, as well as the end, to answer any questions that you may have. Today's discussion is being recorded and will be sent to all of those who registered in the next few days. Today, we have 3 employees of ProLiteracy who are going to talk to us today on how adult literacy education is coping with the challenges of continuing education during the COVID-19 outbreak and the increased interest in the Mobile Learning Fund. Today, we're joined by Todd Evans, who is the Director of Professional Development at ProLiteracy. Greg Stultz is the Educational Sales Consultant and Training Coordinator for ProLiteracy. And Lara Pimentel is the Senior Director of Development at ProLiteracy. Welcome, and thank you, all of us. Thank you for joining us. Here are a couple of the points that we're going to be talking about during today's discussion. We will discuss how adult literacy education has changed since COVID-19 began and the challenges it presents, followed by what the Mobile Learning Fund is and how it can help programs continue and enhance their students' education through digital instruction. We will then have a quick overview on the digital products that are available through the grant and close the discussion on how you can support adult literacy programs through the Mobile Learning Fund and answer your questions. Without further ado, Todd, if you could get us started and talk to us a little more about the current landscape of adult literacy education today and what types of things states and communities are doing. Todd?
Sure, thank you. So a little bit about just kind of what we are seeing across the country. As you might have expected, most of our programs were not doing distance learning before this COVID-19 kind of hit everyone. Some of them had an opportunity to do a little bit of planning before everybody had the stay-at-home directives, but most of our folks are trying to figure things out kind of on the fly. So at this point, and I'll let Greg kind of talk about the landscape that he sees from state to state, but at this point, what we're seeing kind of with literacy programs themselves and the teachers and tutors in those programs is folks have a good list of resources at this point. They know that things like Zoom and Google Classroom are available. They know different websites that they can go to get instructional materials. But where they're really kind of struggling with is trying to figure out what an actual online lesson looks like. So I have Zoom, but how do I use it to teach students? How do I use the tools on Zoom? How do I foster interactivity? How do I get reading materials to the students that I'm working with if I didn't have an opportunity to give them a book beforehand, before everything shut down? How do they turn work back into me? How do I give them feedback? If we are, working with ESL students, that becomes a lot harder. There are a lot of issues around just how do I get students connected if we didn't have the opportunity to meet with them ahead of time? And this is especially true for lower level literacy students and ESL students. How do we get them connected to technology? Do they uh, have cell phones? Do they have computers? Do they have an email address? And so a lot of programs are really just kind of working on figuring that out and have spent the first 2 or 3 weeks of this process of being of staying at home, calling their students and just walking them through the process of getting connected to the various technologies. And then kind of from a programmatic standpoint, so that's more of the instructor piece, but from the programmatic standpoint, they are really struggling with how do we capture student information? How do we enroll new students? How do we capture that information? How do we assess them? How do we create a learning plan? How do we get them into an appropriate classroom or paired with an appropriate teacher or tutor? And then, how do we support that student moving forward? So these are kind of the issues that people are trying to figure out. And Greg, I'll let you kind of talk about what you see, how you see different places dealing with those issues. And then I'll come back and talk a little bit more about kind of what the actual learning has looked like so far.
Hi, Todd. Thanks. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, state by state, it's a very different footprint depending on where you are and for different reasons. There are some states that are funded and better equipped for distance learning and have already something in place so that they have some solid footing and got off to a running start when this COVID-19 crisis hit us. There are others who were just completely blindsided, so it really depends on which state and moreover which program. There are some programs that have made an attempt to embrace digital literacy and others who have been adamant in really, I hate to use the word, limiting instruction to in class and not really doing much for different reasons with technology. So some things that I've seen people doing just over the past 4 to 6 weeks, one particular state, they have banded together and are actually sending out, they're sending out people to deliver. And by deliver, I mean by vehicle, deliver to their doorsteps, to their mailboxes, packets with homework assignments and learning materials, and then have scheduled pickups as well. There are others who are attempting to use Zoom, who are attempting to use Google Classroom and Google Voice. So there are all kinds of different approaches to how to address this. But one of the things, Todd, that I've heard from not only educators, but have encountered firsthand is that for every person who has used Zoom or similar, GoToMeetings or similar resources, formats, there are 5 times as many who are not only unfamiliar with it, but just things like basic etiquette, so that people are talking over one another during a meeting. And then there are just, things that happen in life. You've got a baby crying in the same room. You've got kids who are being homeschooled right now in numerous states. that are underfoot and making noise, and there's nothing you can do about it. So there's a lot of frustration out there, and there are a lot of people, a lot of programs who are scrambling last minute. What can we possibly do to reach our learners, to keep them engaged, while they're locked out of our classrooms?
Yeah, that tracks with some of the stuff that I've been hearing as well. So a lot of programs, when their students don't have access to technology, are doing packets, or they didn't have an opportunity to hook their students up with technology beforehand. They're doing packets, they're scheduling deliveries and things like that. I've heard just kind of a couple of stories. A lot of instructors are trying to cobble together lesson plans from a variety of different websites. So they're finding a website where you can put together a vocabulary activity, and they're posting that in a Google Classroom. And they're finding another website that has grammar rules, and they're putting in grammar exercises, and they're putting that into the Google Classroom. So they're doing a pretty good job of understanding, excuse me, what those different components of a lesson look like, and going out and um, finding different websites to pull together and put, like I said, organize in a Google Classroom or something like that. Um, I have found that a lot of programs were already using or had kind of started testing different actual digital learning platforms. They seem to be making this transition a lot better than the programs uh, or a lot easier, I should say, than the programs that didn't already have kind of digital learning platforms. I was actually talking to a program yesterday, and they were from Oklahoma, and they were talking about how they had already organized their online learning platforms for students to access, and they had created kind of a portal for everybody to access things in one place, and they had online assessment, so it was easy for them to uh, uh, get students enrolled, and to still be able to enroll students even after the stay-at-home orders. But the one thing that they said that I thought was really interesting is they said that, a lot of people think that when you get these digital platforms, that they're going to do all of the teaching, and they do a big part of it. But the lady said students still need peopling, is how she put it. They still need that instructor there to provide guidance, support, um, additional instruction, and really to be an investigator and help that student use that digital tool more effectively, and kind of guiding them and helping them find the lessons that are going to build the skills that they need to build. So I think that is something that I see kind of programs coming to the realization that they've been, maybe, as you said, kind of hesitant to embrace digital platforms and digital materials and digital learning in the past, because they didn't want to replace instructors. But I think they're starting to see now how the digital materials are really uh, a good tool for the teachers to use. They don't replace the teachers. They kind of enhance the reach and the scope of teachers and what they're able to do, and the number of students they're able to reach.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And it is really, these tools are really an extension of the teacher's arm, just making that long armor and the arm longer, that is, and being able to reach out to students in ways that they otherwise wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, and I think just to give folks just an idea of the kind of lessons that people are putting together, we are fortunate enough to have one of our programs in New Jersey that, as she put it, the head of the Literacy New Jersey said she has been trying to work for 10 or 15 years to get her programs to embrace technology. And now within a couple of weeks, they're all kind of using Zoom and seeking out digital materials and have really made the transition pretty quickly. But I'm going to share this. So let's do this and then share my screen. Amanda, I believe I need you to stop sharing so that I can share.
Certainly.
All right. And we're going to share screen 2. And so this is just a lesson from one of the teachers in Literacy New Jersey. And you guys can see she's using Zoom. And she has, it looks like 9 students in her classroom with her. And these are kind of lower level ESL students.
So let's talk about, today we're going to talk about exercise. Exercise. What is exercise? Exercise. I'm going to, there we go. You're all unmuted now. What is exercise?
I am walking.
Yeah, walking. Excellent. Walking. When you walk, you exercise. Excellent. That's what I do. That's my exercise too. I walk. Yeah, I walk. What other types of exercise do you do?
Run.
You run.
Whoa.
Yeah. Run. That's a good one. Mm-hmm.
Swim.
What's that? What's that, Zeppi?
Is a swim.
Sleep? Is sleep exercise?
No, swim.
Oh, swim. Swim. Thank you. Swim. I wish sleeping was an exercise, but swimming, excellent.
Yeah.
Swimming in the water at the beach, right? Oh, there we go. Carolyn's background. She's got water there. We could go swimming at the Golden Gate Bridge there.
Yes.
We can swim there. Excellent. Monica, do you exercise?
Yeah, apps in the house.
What do you do? What do you do? Do you lift weights?
Apps.
Abs, abs, excellent, abs. Abs, you work the stomach muscles, abs. And then I said, lift weights. Lift weights.
Okay, and I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back over to Amanda to share her screen again. But I think you'll kind of see that that teacher's doing a really good job of teaching vocabulary, having good practice conversation with those ESL students. She's doing a great job of engaging them all. But you see kind of also the kind of limitations of what she's doing. Most tutors don't have a at-home classroom studio to be able to, you know, kind of pull together a whiteboard and exercises and things like that. So she's obviously doing a great job with the materials that she had at home. But those programs that do have those digital learning platforms and access to websites like News for You Online and Liamos and things like that, it does allow them kind of a better way to provide structure, to share information and resources, to share instructional lessons and activities and exercises and things like that. So it gives them a little bit more freedom, a little bit more resources to draw on. So, Laura, I think that's probably a good synopsis of the landscape that we're kind of seeing across the country?
Yeah, thank you, Todd. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Greg. Todd and Greg, before you unmute yourselves or mute yourselves, I have a question for you about what's your estimate right now of number of programs, percentages of programs that are operating and offering some sort of online instruction versus programs that are just, completely shut down? You have any idea about that?
So from our perspective, so we did a webinar 2 weeks ago on distance learning and just giving people some ideas of how to do a lesson online. We had about 860 participants. We did a poll where we asked them who's doing distance learning and then kind of how do you feel about it? And it was, I feel okay, we're doing it, but it could be better, or we're not doing it and I need to learn how. And I would say about half of the participants were in that middle section of we're doing something, but we really feel like it could be better. And then that remaining half was really split between we're not doing anything and we're doing stuff and we feel pretty good about what we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that that's similar to my own findings. I don't know that I could speak in percentages, Lara, but definitely am experiencing and have heard from our other reps across the country the same, that there are some who have something in place and feel pretty good about it. There are others who are just flailing and were just really caught at unawares and not prepared. And still others who are somewhere in between, but looking for more effective options, additional tools and ways to reach out to their learners.
Thanks, guys. That's really helpful. And I think the reason that's good to know and understand for everybody on this webinar is, everybody's in a different place. Every program is operating from a different place. ProLiteracy is definitely operating from a different place than we were several weeks ago, trying to bring, mobile solutions to different organizations. And the way, Todd and Greg described it, we're really, we typically think about a blended learning option, because blended learning is, the mix of teachers in-person education mixed with the online education. And right now we're just kind of thrown into this, doing the best that we can, helping programs with technology, because that's really, pre-COVID, it was about how do we retain learners, how do we recruit learners, how do we use technology? And now it's just about, this all depends on using technology. So, ProLiteracy is just trying to figure out and help the best that we can to give organizations a break, really just give them the tools that they need. So, I want to let you know a little bit about the Mobile Learning Fund, why we created it, what it is. It's really a fund that's, supported by donors, donations from individuals, foundations, to bring mobile solutions and technology to literacy programs. When we started this, it was really because we started it back in the fall of 2019. And we always heard from literacy organizations just this relationship with technology, right? That a lot are using it, a lot of organizations are doing it in different ways, but finding solutions that make sense for them, that make sense for their instructors, that make sense for their learners is, it's not easy. It takes time and resources, and we wanted to give people, organizations, what we could. New Readers Press has about 5 online digital solutions that Greg will talk about later. But we wanted to make those available and give those to programs so they could buy themselves some time and some resources to be able to figure those out with their learners, with their tutors, whoever needs to be brought into that to figure that all out. And so that's what the Mobile Learning Fund is all about. Today and throughout the rest of the week, actually, donations to the Mobile Learning Fund will be matched by the very generous Nora Roberts Foundation. So if anybody is interested in, really trying to help out organizations right now, you could reach a learner with $50. You could really just put that out there, and a learner, next week is going to get a new license just because of your thoughtful donations. So we are seeing an uptick in applications to the Mobile Learning Fund. We are seeing that programs are using this resource, and it's certainly ticked up since COVID came on and stay-at-home orders came on. So even during this time, as Greg, I think, mentioned, or Todd mentioned, that programs are just calling people to get their students online and using these tools if they didn't have time to get them figured out ahead of time. So, just because they're not meeting in person doesn't mean that these tools are less applicable or anything like that. If anything, they're even more applicable today than they were, 7 weeks ago. It's just so necessary. So I think, Greg, do you want to talk a little bit more about the tools that we're offering from the Mobile Learning Fund?
Laura, you know me well enough to know that I'm always eager our products. But yes, I'd be happy to. I'm going to focus very quickly on our top 5 here. We have New Readers Press Online Learning, Learning Upgrade, Voxy, Leamos, and News for You Online. The first is our online learning course. From our popular pre-HSE core skills books and from various GED and HiSET products that we offer in print. We've made this available now in a new interactive online learning environment that's accessible 24/7, and this, very important, on all devices. One of the things that we've mentioned that I'll just reiterate is that for some, in their homes, they may not have a laptop that they can use for these purposes. So often for so many, their mobile phone, their smartphone is their lifeline for just about everything. So this is accessible on all devices, whether Android or Apple. There are 3 separate courses actually available on just one learning platform, so it's simple and for both students and educators to learn and use, whether they're at a pre-HSE level or a high school equivalency level. And it features diagnostic pre-tests, unit tests, post-tests for periodic assessment. There's an adaptive study calendar and other progress monitoring tools to help keep students on track, especially when there's not an instructor right there beside her or him. Careful alignment to college career readiness standards, GED indicators, HiSET standards, guided practice with answer explanations, again, crucial, not only giving practice questions, read it, answer a question, but providing guided practice, hints, teaching critical thinking skills as they work through these tasks, and then answer explanations. It's interactive, so there's online note-taking, bookmarking, highlighting, and this, another important point, communication and interaction between the instructor and the students, which is essential for distance learning, and that via the online learning discussion board, so they can go back and forth as they're learning independently and interact with the class, interact with the instructor. There are achievement badges to keep the students motivated, and then useful analytics as well, including time on task for reporting purposes, so that this can be documented for funding. That's online learning. Next is, there it is, Learning Upgrade, awarded the grand prize for Best Mobile App in the Barbara Bush Foundation Adult Literacy X Prize competition just last year. Learning Upgrade offers over 20 courses with over 900 lessons that include songs, videos, games, to keep adult learners engaged, and it accelerates growth in literacy and math from the most basic level all the way up to GED and high-set test preparation. Oh, and I almost forgot, on Thursday, we'll be hosting a webinar to introduce Learning Upgrade's latest course on digital literacy. So, good timing. And that's the day after tomorrow. It's accessible via web, smartphone, tablet, so that learners can study anytime, anywhere. And it gets results and provides reporting tools and data that programs need. Oh, what else? Is Voxy next?
Mhm.
Voxy is next. Voxy is an industry-leading online English learning program that delivers highly effective and a truly unique instruction through personalized courses based on the student's level, needs, and interests in both general and career-aligned English. It's authentic, level-appropriate content using real media sources that are updated daily. This is really cool. Voxy has a patented adaptive learning engine that provides personalized instruction on a whole new level. What it does is it analyzes the student's strengths and weaknesses after each task, and it adjusts the next lessons accordingly. So the learner is always getting what she or he needs the most practice in. This adaptive learning engine just continues to learn more and more about the student as she or he completes tasks. What else is different about it? Well, there's another element with Voxy. There's available optional live virtual instruction. And this provided from native English-speaking certified teachers all over the world, everywhere but Antarctica. Ongoing and scheduled proficiency assessment, detailed analytics, and again, around-the-clock mobile and web access across all devices. So again, easy to use and just reaching learners, helping instructors reach learners more effectively. I'm not done yet. There's Leamos. Leamos is an easy to use, what I would call a pre-ESL online course, if that makes sense. And it teaches non-literate Spanish-speaking adults to read and write in their native language. The students are doing things like learning syllables, words, basic sentence structure, and doing this through 9 modules, which is about 43, I think, self-paced lessons. That includes audio support, a virtual tutor, worksheets, quizzes, diagnostic and summative assessment, an implementation guide, even training videos. It is. It's Leamos is also meeting key reading and listening components for CASAS, for those who go by CASAS. Last, certainly not least, but I saved it intentionally for last, is the News for You online. It's our online version of News for You. For those of you who are not familiar with, it's a weekly news source for adult learners. And in my opinion, it's a cornerstone of our foundation. News for You was first published back in 1959 as a class project by Dr. Robert Lawback, who we affectionately remember as Dr. Bob, and his literacy journalism students at SU, Syracuse University. The very first issue included a story about communist revolutionary Fidel Castro. And by its 3rd year, people across the US were reading News for You, and the rest is history. It's been published ever since. So native English speakers and English language learners build foundational skills in the context of high interest, current events, and human interest stories. Each edition features 7 articles, authentic articles from the Washington Post and Associated Press 3 of them written at reading levels 3 to 4, and then the other 4 written at levels 4 to 6. But the stories are sparking discussion, while at the same time honing skills in reading comprehension and fluency, vocabulary, grammar, listening comprehension, as there's full audio and lots more. And then in addition to the 7 current articles, there's a story archive that goes all the way back to late April of 2008. And there's also audio, interactive puzzles, a weekly poll, exercises for each story, tips for teachers, a weekly teacher's guide online. And News for You online is also accessible 24/7 on any computer, tablet, or mobile device. So how's that for digital learning lineup, Lara?
I like it, Greg. Well done.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Adult literacy programs across the country have the ability to choose among many different high quality products. So that's great. So now that we've talked about the fund and how these products, how you can use the Mobile Learning Fund, Lara, do you just want to reiterate how they can help today?
Yeah, sure. So just hop on proliteracy.org/donate. You can make a donation right there. It's secure. You can pay with a credit card. Amanda did this nice illustration because you do have to select from the designation menu to teaching solutions for it to actually go to the Mobile Learning Fund. If not, it'll just come in for general support, which is still very much appreciated. And again, just a reminder, Nora Roberts Foundation and their generosity, they're matching gifts all the rest of the week for up to $5,000. So we really appreciate, everything that programs are doing, that organizations are doing to educate learners during this crazy time. And we would appreciate everyone's support so that we can help them do that even more by giving them more of these tools. As you saw, there's such an array of different types of tools that, there's something in there for everybody. So we really appreciate you attending today, and please make that donation this week.
So now we can take some time in the discussion if there's any questions from the audience. Ryan, you were handling the questions if there was any that we needed to answer.
Hi, Amanda. We don't have any questions right now, but those of you who are still with us, feel free to submit them at the bottom of your screen and we'll get them answered.
Yeah, I have a question maybe for Todd and for Greg. Do you expect these changes to continue kind of once the dust settles, so to speak, both for kind of organizations, learners, instructors? Kind of how do you think the landscape is going to change once life gets back to a little sense of normalcy?
Sure, I'll speak to that, and then Greg, you can follow up. Just from what I'm hearing from programs, even though a lot of them are still trying to kind of figure out how to do this, there's definitely a recognition that when this is all over, there's going to be kind of a new normal, so to speak, and programs are recognizing that having digital materials and doing distance learning really allows them to reach students that they wouldn't have been able to reach before. All of us who have been involved in adult education know that barriers kind of constantly come up for students to participate in adult literacy programs, and those range from childcare issues, reliable transportation, changes in job schedules, just being in a rural community, for example, where you might have to drive 20 or 30 minutes to get to a class, and you can't really do that. And so they're kind of recognizing that distance learning is a way to address those barriers and get those students involved, in learning. And they're even, as they're figuring out distance learning now, I was just in a meeting earlier today, and some of the folks that said that students who had stopped coming to their classes because they had got pregnant, had a baby, had their transportation, the way they were getting to class kind of fell through, and they're coming back on. They found out that these programs are offering distance learning. They've re-enrolled and connected back. So I definitely see programs are starting to think about how can we incorporate this into the services that we're going to offer in the future.
Yeah. A few different things that I've been hearing and experiencing, Amanda, and one of those is that, as Todd said, there will be definitely for many a new normal, and I don't think that many programs will just breathe a sigh of relief and say, great, now let's get back to exactly what we were doing before. But for those who are going to need to take those possibly first steps, there are going to be financial challenges immediately and ongoing. You know, for those who have focused all of their attention on in-class, you know, having the learners come to the program for classes, now they have to look to not only finding resources that would be suitable for blended learning, but there are programs out there who don't even have a computer lab, who are going to have to make a significant investment in 10, 15, 5, 50 laptops to use, and spaces so that their learners can use those at the program. And then they're going to have teacher and tutor training. There are veteran teachers and tutors out there, particularly, he'll speak to the volunteers who so generously give their time and expertise to adult learners who are at the top of their game when it comes to instructing learners, but technology-wise, they lack some of those skills. So there's going to be instruction for the instructors that's necessary. And then beyond that, you've got to help the students understand the technology and then purchase the different courses and programs that are available and learn them as well. So there are going to be numerous challenges out there, none of which are going to be inexpensive or easy, sadly. I think that, frankly, and sales hat off, kidding aside, New Readers Press has some of the best options for adult programs out there right now, in that they're easy to use for both instructors and students. They're as affordable as we can make them and very competitive. And they're available across the different devices, including the mobile devices like the iPhones and Androids that many of the learners are going to be using.
Yeah, Craig, I think that's such an important point that you hit on, is that programs. I mean, we know. There's not a lot of money in education in general. There's not a lot of money in nonprofits. There's certainly not a lot of money for programs that combine those two things in nonprofit education. And so our adult literacy programs across the board, they have very tight budgets. And so kind of traditionally, given the choice between spending that money on replacing and replenishing the print materials that they use for instruction, or investing in even a new curriculum, much less a new kind of digital learning platform that might be more expensive than just purchasing the books. They choose to use that money judiciously and purchase replacement instructional materials that their teachers are familiar with. And so why the Mobile Learning Fund is so important to these programs, especially now, is that they're recognizing they are going to need digital materials and they need financial help to make that initial investment in materials, to be able to test them, to try them out, to see which ones are a good fit for the learners in their community. And then that's what the Mobile Learning Fund allows them to do. It allows them to try those out. It allows them to see what's a good fit. And then they can proceed to make the case to funders in their community of giving them more funding to expand their licenses and things like that.
Right, right.
Wonderful. Thanks for answering the question. Do we have any other questions?
None here.
Okay. If we didn't answer your question, or if you do have one after this webinar, I do have email addresses at the end of this presentation. You can please feel free to reach out to Todd or to Lara or to Greg as well. So again, thank you so much for listening to today's presentation. This discussion has been recorded. It will be sent to all of those who did register in the next couple days. And we will also play it on our Facebook page for playback. Again, if you have any other additional questions, if you'd like to follow up with either Lara or for Todd for any other questions or concerns, and if you'd like to contribute to the Mobile Learning Fund, especially with the match graciously provided by the Nora Roberts Foundation this week, please go to proliteracy.org/donate. We would greatly appreciate it, and we can definitely help more and more programs. So thank you all for attending, and I hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.